We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
Welcome to Base Coverage, everyone. Presented to you by Knoah Teamwear. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. Now, before we start this interview, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment. Let's talk some ball. You know, I like chopping it up with you guys. But, hey, this is media coverage as we are going to be previewing the ELF Championship all week long. And I'm going to have a number of guests on the show. Today, you know, we dive a little bit into the fantasy world with our team over at Firstdown ELF to talk some fantasy and, you know, some of the guys that stood out throughout the year and what potential matchups to look forward to in this game. So, you know, before we get into that, here's a quick word from our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. Welcome back, everyone. Today on this show of Base Coverage, as we continue media coverage leading into the ELF Championship, I wanted to bring something different than just, you know, a player or a coach, and something that recently has just started this past year that's been, you know, growing in Europe, and that's fantasy. So I went over to Firstdown ELF and reached out to my guy, David Bismara, to come on the show and talk about some of the top fantasy guys in this matchup and some other matchups to look forward to. So, David, what's going on, man? How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Most definitely. I appreciate you coming on, man. I just figured this is an opportunity where, you know, the biggest game of the year, and, you know, let's give people a different dynamic in terms of, you know, just matchups. Let's let them see it from a fantasy perspective too, man.
Of course. I'm so excited for this game. I think it's going to be a huge game. We have last year's second place against the best new entry from this year. Yeah, went unbeaten 8-0 for the start of the season. I think it's going to be a huge game, really fun one to watch.
This matchup kind of gives the ELF everything they wanted, right? You got the Hamburg Sea Devils, like you mentioned, who were in the championship league last year. Probably so far the most successful team in the young history of the ELF, returning back to the championship game. You got an Austrian powerhouse, not only a newcomer, but you know, a team that's proven, you know, their strengths in all of Europe. You got the Germany versus Austria battle. You got, you know, you got two great teams that have kind of been, you know, some of the top teams all league going against each other for the first time too. We're not seeing a repeat matchup. So
of course,
you know, in 3 seasons of the young ELF history, we've had Spain, Austria, Germany, and Poland so far. So, you know, 4 different countries represented. And that's only going to grow as this league continues to grow. But I'm definitely excited.
I mean, we have Italy, Hungary, and we have Munich coming in. Well, we have a lot of other states and other parts of Europe joining as well. I think I'm very excited for where this league is going towards.
Most definitely. And, you know, with new teams, we're going to get new players and, you know, new guys to pick on fantasy. So it's definitely going to get interesting. But your first year doing this, my man, you know, how do you think it went for you?
Okay, so it was really fun doing it. I wasn't expecting much, but I think we got more than I expected out of it, because I don't know, it's just that we did the Italian league before we did the European league. Yep. It was like a much smaller concept. And then we did the European league. It was like 3 times the amounts of people every week to calculate and everything. So that was a bit more work, but yeah, it went really well for the first year. We just wanted to test out if it was doable to actually have a fantasy in the European league. And we're already working towards the next year, and it's all coming together. Next year is going to be much different.
Yeah, and I bet as, you know, this league continues to grow, this platform is going to continue to grow. People are going to get more involved in it. In terms of guys that are, you know, in this matchup, the ELF Championship between Vienna and Hamburg, you know, who all season long, you know, guys have been, you know, performing, putting up great numbers week in, week out. So leading into the championship game, you know, name some of the top guys who have been, you know, leaders in the fantasy world that are going to be playing in this game that people could look forward to.
Right. So in my breakdown, I chose two guys for Vienna and two fantasy players for Hamburg. So for Vienna, we have to talk about Dirty Dude, of course, Erdmann, their quarterback, import, really, really good.
Yeah.
He started off the season kind of iffy, and he ended it this season as well kind of iffy. I think the end of the season we don't count it because they basically were in the playoffs, both the teams at like week 11 or 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
So the end of the season doesn't count that much, but he's a very solid player. He has a very high average per game of fantasy points talking. And yeah, I think that if he gets space and he doesn't get too much pressure, he's gonna be a huge game changer for his game. The other guy for Vikings is gonna be Jordan Bois, which I have a sweet spot for because he's Italian and I'm Italian as well. he has proven to be the playmaker.
Yeah.
Like every time you see in the Vikings breakdown of the games in the statistics, touchdown with like more than 70 yards, it's always him. And it's because of his speed. I think that in this game is going to be a huge factor of, you get some space to Erdmann. You are not running the ball because the Sea Devils defense is just covering the run. You just throw a bomb to Jordan Bois and he just gets open because he's that fast. So I think he's going to be a huge factor as well.
Yeah.
And then for the Hamburg side, we have Glenn Tonga, of course, which I think is one of the most valid MVP candidates.
Yeah.
Because he just dominated the league in running back wise. He's like 400 yards ahead of the second guy for rushing yards. He's like 11 touchdowns ahead of the second guy.
Yeah.
For rushing touchdowns. And in fantasy wise as well, he's crazy. He's got like 21.47 as average per game. And that's absurd because the second guy has like 15 or something like that. So yeah, it just shows how much this guy has got into this year and how much he managed to do thanks to the Hamburg offense, if you mind. Last but not least, of course, the Sea Devils defense. This defensive unit is absurd. They went into the playoffs. I think they conceded just 2 rushing touchdowns in the whole season.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And fantasy-wise, they've been crazy. They have 210 accumulated fantasy points, all right, through the whole season. The second guy has 135.
Wow.
Okay. And they have 210. For points per game, they have 17.5, which I don't know if you play fantasy or any of the people are listening play fantasy. 17.5 as an average for defense is crazy.
Yeah, that's absurd.
And the second guy is like at 11.25. So that shows how much of a gap there is to the second guy in the league. And also I want to mention week 11, Sea Devils defense got 45 points in fantasy. 45 as a defense.
Yeah. That's
crazy. That's like, if a quarterback does that, everybody's going crazy for it.
That's expected.
Because that's a huge performance. For a defense, it's just unthinkable. It's crazy. They're so good, and they're going to be a huge difference maker in this championship.
And it just makes it so much more intriguing in terms of like the two guys you point out for Vienna, because you got, Jackson Ehrman, who's been, he's been a silent killer in the pocket all season. Just killing teams from inside the pocket. And then you got Bua, who could take a score, a 5-yard catch and could take it 80, 85 to the house.
Yes, absolutely.
That defense has been, I'm going to say this for, within like the first 5-10 years of fantasy, I don't know if we're going to see a defense as talented number-wise, as we pointed out, like the Hamburg one we're seeing this year. And that's what makes this ELF championship game so exciting.
Absolutely. I think that us going on forwards with the fantasy, we are not going to get for many years numbers like these ones for a defense. Like this defense was just ridiculous this year.
Most definitely. Let's so we talked about some of the top guys. Now I want to talk about who do you think, are the top 3 fantasy matchups to watch in this game?
All right, so talking about Boa, okay, we got to talk about his counterpart, his other other guy, the one for Sea Devils, of course, we're talking about Jean Constant.
Yeah.
He is always being top player for the ELF. Last year, he led the league as far as wide receivers goes. And this year, they are 12th for Constant and 16th for Boa for average per game of fantasy points. So they're kind of leveled, and they're both like huge playmakers. They're, as you said, they can get a 5-yard catch and running for 80 yards and just get open like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a huge difference maker of which one of the two is going to actually, get those plays in, actually make a play more often and be able to help their offense more. And then after that, we got to talk about the defenses. Of course, we talked a lot about the Sea Devils defense, that they're huge. I think this game is going to be a battle of the defenses. So the Vikings defense has to step up.
Yeah.
They were like 6th out of 12 for fantasy performances per game. After the game against the Dragons, they moved to 5th because I don't know if you saw the game, but they shut them down. They let them score 2 touchdowns when they were like 29 points up or something like that. Yeah. They really shut them down. The Dragons were struggling a lot on offense.
Yeah,
so I think
and we're talking about the Dragons team that's been, averaging 30-some points per game, has been pretty high scoring all game.
Exactly. We're talking about Edwards and Kyle Sweet, and those players have been shut down, and those are some high caliber players.
Yeah.
So I think that if they manage to tackle Tonga, which is not easy, and they manage to contain and put pressure on Cheesy to not let him throw the ball to his wide receivers, I think it's going to be a very tight game. And also, since the defenses are going to be so important, in my opinion, in this game, a huge part is going to be taken by the offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
So the offensive lines are going to have the job of just establish a run game and just giving the time to the quarterback, because the pressure is going to be high on both hands. And it's really interesting fantasy-wise because the Sea Devils and the Vikings were 2nd and 3rd at the end of the season. After the playoff game, based on an offensive line, that's only offensive line, the Vikings overtook the Sea Devils for best offensive line or second best offensive line, because the Raiders were just, I don't know, they just went off in offensive line through the season. So that's you can see how close it is between those two teams as offensive line and just the offense going forward. I think that the Vikings offensive line can make a difference if they're able to stop this pressure because nobody's been able to stop this pressure. Let's be serious. Nobody's been able to stop the Sea Devils pressure.
Yeah, that front seven is, I think a couple weeks ago they recorded like 13 sacks alone.
Yeah.
Like that
it was like week 14, I think.
Yeah, that front seven.
Last week of the season, they just went up for 13 sacks. I don't know. They've been qualified for like 4 weeks for the playoffs, and they're still going off for 13 sacks in a game. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think Vienna really has to do a good job of keeping this balance, because if you get down, and now you're playing, a pass happy game, you're just gonna let the D line. You're just gonna let the D line eat, and then it's like, all right, well, now for the offensive line, it's like, all right, well, I know, it's, they're coming, so it's like, what are we gonna do now? So I think Vienna really has to try to keep this game balanced to offset, the front seven for Henry. But also, when you got a front seven like that, Jackson's gonna have to get the ball out quick. He's not gonna be able to just sit there in the pocket. So I'm interested to see this chess match between Hamburg's defense and Vienna's offense.
I think that for Jackson the job is a bit harder. Of course, they're playing against a tougher defense than the Sea Devils offense, but Jackson has just so many weapons around it. I think that the Vikings are the team with the most wide receivers in the top 20 or top 30 for fantasy wise. And they just have so many weapons. They have 4 wide receivers that are really good. You can start them each week. And then they have Anton Wagen, which plays both running back and wide receiver the whole year. That made no sense. He was just too good. And then Florian Wagen, which I think he's going to be a huge difference maker. His performance is gonna really decide how the game is gonna go.
Yeah,
that's the sleeper.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it's a crazy matchup, and there's so much. So there's gonna be so much to look at in terms of how to break it down. Like, you know, for the film junkies, it's gonna take, you know, not only the game, but it's gonna take a couple of days after. Like, all right, what really happened? So that's gonna be interesting to see. But hey, give me an under the radar guy who could potentially have a great fantasy game.
Yeah, I think Florian Wagan, as I said, he's the guy. He's the guy. He played just the first 3 games and the last 2 of the season, and then he played the playoff game, and he was huge in the playoff. He got like 2 touchdowns. He really established a good run game. He's that kind of guy that if he's playing and he's in the game, really, like, you know, focused and everything, he just every time you're missing like 2, 3, or 4 yards, he gets them for you. Every time you're short to the touchdown, you're not managing to get in, he just gets in. He just breaks the plan and he just gets in. So I think he's going to be a huge player for the Vikings to be able to get over his really tough Sea Devils defense.
Well, with that being said, brother, I mean, I agree with you. I think that's an under the radar guy, and probably a guy that, you know, you may not be necessarily preparing for just because of the season or him being hurt and stuff like that. But, you know, someone who's been healthy and has come along. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. But, hey, man, with that being said, you know, who do you got in this game? I'm not going to make a pick. I'm going to wait later in the week to do that. But who do you got in this game?
Right. So I'm going to be, of course, I cannot cheer for anybody in particular because I run the fantasy. I cannot be cheering for anybody in particular. So that's it. But I have talked to different people and have got opinion. I have people that cheer for Hamburg, people that cheer for the Vikings as well. In my opinion, the Vikings are the underdog, even though they went 8-0 through the season and all of that. The Vikings are definitely the underdog. And as much as we love the underdog story, I don't think they're going to get the win. I think ultimately the Hamburg Sea Devils are going to just shut them down enough on defense that their offense, even though they're not going to do too much, I think it's going to be a game of defenses. So I think the Sea Devils are going to struggle a bit on offense, but they're going to do enough to get over the Vikings points, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think the Hamburg takes it on.
So I got Dave in the back. I don't have a bell, but make pretend there's a bell right here. I'm ringing the bell for you, man. I'm ringing the bell for you.
Yeah.
Hey, man. Well, listen, this is gonna be a fascinating matchup. I'm excited to watch. I know you're excited to watch. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it being on so much.
Yeah, no problem. Don't forget to everybody check out Firstdown ELF. My man Dave, you know, controlling it a little bit.
Can I shout out my stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. So the Instagram page is firstdown.elf.
Yep.
And then I want to shout out the graphic that we work with, which is root.psd, if I'm not mistaken. It's root anyways. And that's it. That's our things. Also, we're planning on starting with a magazine that's going to be announced soon. Okay. And just talk about the football in Europe in general. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably coming soon.
Hey, well, Dave, I appreciate it. We got some breaking news with fantasy expanding and everything. You know, I'll put those tags in the link below for everyone to go check it out, and definitely check out Dave and firstdown.elf on Instagram and, you know, the fantasy world. So it's gonna be some great fantasy matchups in this game. Dave, I appreciate you coming on, man. This won't be the last time we chop it up, brother. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I hope I was able to give you some fantasy pointers with our team over at Firstdown ELF about this upcoming matchup. Don't forget, Knoah is giving out free gear all week long. So all you got to do is follow Knoah on Instagram, follow Athletes Forum on Instagram, and you automatically enter a chance to win some free gear. Shout out to our contest winner today. They'll be getting some free gear on behalf of our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. So tune in as we continue to bring up some more interviews throughout the week covering the ELF Championship. It's a doozy. It's a matchup that the ELF's been waiting for all season with two of the top teams in the league and teams that haven't faced each other with the Vienna Vikings and the Hamburg Sea Devils. It's definitely going to be a good one to tune into. Thank you guys for tuning in. This won't be the last time we chop it up. Nobody.
Stop.